Welcome to the Impactus podcast. Today we have a special episode with former NHL hockey player and Stanley Cup champion Ryan Walter. Originally airing in 2016, it's a timeless message entitled The Battle for a Man's Soul, and one that every man needs to hear. Ryan will be speaking at our upcoming Men's Ministry Leadership Summit on Monday, September 27th. Go to impactus.org for details and registration. Now let's go to our Impactus podcast with Ryan Walter.
Anybody this week feel like they were battling? Yeah. You know what? Me too. I had a week that was just a battle from start to front, from front to back. And I felt like I was battling, so I thought we could have a great chat about a battle. What is a battle? Why is it always a battle? And get a bit of a perspective from there. Would you agree with me that we live in the time of the quickest pace of change ever? All right, we gotta see this happen. I need you guys to stand up. I like you to move a little. Come on, you gotta stand up with me, boys. Just a bunch of hockey players here, right? Okay. If you're a bunch of hockey players, you'll know how to play. We'll just have some fun with this. Hands up. Hands up. Got to move them a bit. Move them around. Okay, now you got to be a little silly. Absolutely. Little silly. Okay, we're going to go. Brrr. All right, put the hands together. Clasp them. Bring them down in front. Now, have a look at which thumb is on top. Okay, you got it? Okay, ready? One more time. Up. Together. Brrr. Together. Down. Is it the same thumb on top? Okay, the hardest thing you're going to do tonight is right here. You're going to change thumbs, boys. All right, ready? Ready? Here we go. Okay, together, other thumb. Oh, that's weird. Grab a seat. Would you agree with me that is the weirdest feeling? Some of the battle that we're going through is just because our battlefield is changing. And change is not easy. Now, if I was to go, what's the mall over here? Let's say I was in one of your big malls down in Calgary, and I walked around for a little bit, hands up, and brought the other thumb down every time. I could create some change. That would be all right. So let's look at 4 areas of battle, guys, tonight. And I'm really, really excited to share with you this evening. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see the movie Miracle. Anybody see that movie? Boy, no, a couple, thank you. It's always good. In crowds like this, I always get 2 people that saw the movie. I had a chance to be in that movie. And Disney came to me about 4 summers ago, or 4 falls ago, and asked me to participate in the movie as a hockey expert. And they didn't want it to look like the Mighty Ducks. They said it couldn't look like the Mighty Ducks. So we replicated the 1980 Winter Olympic win of the U.S. over the Soviets. And I had 152 different plays on my computer that we had to actually nail. Mark Johnson's goal had to look like Mark Johnson's goal. So we worked really hard. We worked 4 months behind the scenes to make that happen. And by the way, guys, I don't get any residuals, so if you want to buy the movie, don't think of me, okay? No residuals come here. We did an all right job, and so Gavin O'Connor, the director, he said, Ryan, I'd like to get you in the movie. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. My wife, Jenny, seemed to be pretty excited, so I said, okay, away we go. He said, now Kurt Russell was the lead. He played Herb Brooks, a coach. And when Kurt Russell, he worked on all of his skating, and he was all right. And when he skated at the camera, obviously it had to be him. But when he skated away from the camera, that was my rear end. Now, I never wanted to be anybody's rear end, okay? But that was the first time I was ever in Hollywood. So I must have done a good job because Gavin O'Connor came back to me, the director, And he said, Ryan, I'm going to get you another little part. And he made me the referee between the Soviet Union and the U.S. 35 days of shooting. I got my union card. I had 4 lines. Like, they were really hard lines, guys. Like stuff like 2 minutes slashing. That's a hard line. All of that to say, behind the scenes, I used to think that this was just Hollywood baloney. I didn't know they did this all the time. But Gavin O'Connor, the director, walked around every day, all day, for 5 months doing this. Then he'd turn it, and he'd do that. What is that? You know what, guys? It hit me. It hit me. At the end of our life, the Bible says that God's going to play back a movie. We battle every day for our focus. What does our life look like? You know, the things that are inside our frame are the things that are important to us and happen on a weekly basis. Are we happy with that? Is that exactly what we want to see played back at the end of our life? And that's the challenge that I've been in even this week. So we battle for focus, battling all the time to think as leaders, and as leaders in our home, and leaders in our community, and leaders in our hockey teams, and leaders as coaches. What are the important things that should be in our focus? Those important things will be in our frame. Do you know what's beautiful about this weekend, guys? Is the gentlemen that are going to speak to you far beyond me tonight and tomorrow are going to give you insights and ideas to prioritize the important things that need to be in our lives. At the end of the day, it's our movie. So we're going to battle for focus. Do you know what I think we battle for also? I actually do every week, is we battle for honor. What is this word honor? I love this word honor. I need to tell you that, does anybody here remember the Todd Bertuzzi game? Oh boy, that was ugly. That may have been the hardest game I've ever broadcast in my life. That may have been the hardest game that I've ever been at in my life. And I don't know why it happens to me, but I was given that game as the only Canuck game that I broadcast that season. As a matter of fact, I've been doing a lot of the Calgary games. I've loved doing Calgary here for Sportsnet, and I do about half the games, love doing it. But that game was scary. Do you know, I've got this trained hockey eye, or a so-called trained hockey eye, and I'm looking at the situation, and you guys could see it happening too. Bertuzzi's following Steve Moore around the ice. You know that something's going to erupt. And then comes the sucker punch. And then Steve goes down. And then everybody piles on. I have never in my life stopped Jim Hewson, but I did that night. Jim was calling the game, and I said, Jim, stop. Steve's in trouble. And Steve Moore lay in a pile of blood. I don't know if you've ever been up in a broadcast booth, but the color guy, that's me, has a little talk back button. And our producer and our director did what they had to do. They showed that over and over and over to the point where I was on the talk back saying, no more, guys, no more. In the ugliest, darkest of days, of hockey days, there was honor. During that game, Brad May, do you remember? I don't know if you remember that game. The Avalanche got way up. They were up by 5 goals, and then the Canucks started to come back. Brad May scored 2 goals in that game. I always say that was a miracle in itself. When Brad scored his second goal, Trevor Linden gave him the puck. And Linden, when he gave May the puck and May scored, Trevor Linden became, there's an Alberta boy, He became the highest scorer, the number one point getter in Canuck history. So as he goes off the ice, there's a little applause, but when he comes back on the ice 5 shifts later, the whole place erupts and it's a standing ovation. It's one of the greatest standing ovations I've ever seen. Well, my hockey eye is not watching the standing ovation. I'm watching Big Mike Civic. Now, Big Mike Civic is the linesman. He's got the puck in the neutral zone. And he's got, in today's NHL, 15 seconds to drop the puck. He's got a conundrum is what he's got. Because if he drops the puck, he messes up the standing ovation. But if he doesn't drop the puck, he gets in trouble. What's he going to do? 14, 13, 12. He doesn't know what to do. I can see it in his mind. He's confused. 11, 10, click. He gets it. Big Mike Civic, big smile on his face. I'm watching him. He gets down over near the boards and he takes the puck and he pretends to patch a hole in the ice. There's no hole in the ice. Lonnie Cameron, his other linesman, click, he gets it. He goes over to the time bench and he grabs a water bottle and he squirts water on the non-hole in the ice. And in that moment, he gives Trevor Linden a 1:15 standing ovation instead of 15 seconds. In the darkest of days, guys, in the darkest of hockey days, 2 men, Mike Civic and Lonnie Cameron, honored the game. They honored Trevor Linden. They honored the game. Do you know, I think one of the most important things that I can do on a weekly basis is think about how can I honor other people? And more importantly, as I do that, how can I honor God? How can I honor God? That's a battle, though. For me, that's a battle. I get busy. How come the evil one and me keep me so busy? That's the battle that I have. The third battle for me is a battle of confidence. And I know Vince is going to talk to you about confidence tomorrow. I don't know, does anybody here have spells of being not so confident? Yeah, there's a few of us. Boy, I am. I mean, you'd think a 15-year NHL player, is confident all the time. Well, I've got lots of areas in my life now, in business, in family, in marriage, that I'm new at. Just because you play 15 NHL seasons doesn't mean that you've got life figured out. The last year I played, by the way, I chuckle a little bit. I brought my 1986 Stanley Cup ring, but I didn't think you'd like it. You know what I will do, though, when I'm signing books at the back or later on, if you want to come see it, I'll certainly let you have a look at it. But I always feel that Calgary got even because you guys beat us in '89, right? Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, you got to clap for that one. We were so happy. I think even we wanted Lanny McDonald to win a Stanley Cup, and that's not a good thing. In 1989, isn't it interesting, when you're an older team and you go to a cup final and you win, you're mature, but you lose, you're old. Like how could that be? How does that happen? So 89, we lose to your Calgary Flames. And all of a sudden, a bunch of us old guys now are not seeing as much ice time. As a matter of fact, I had a very difficult year that year. I had a bunch of injuries, and come playoff time, we're going to play the Boston Bruins starting in Boston, and Pat Burns doesn't dress me for game 1. Whoa. All my life, gentlemen, I've told people that I was a team player, and now I had to prove it. Was I angry? Yes. Was I upset? Absolutely. This is my building, Boston. It's a little sheet of ice. You don't have to be a good skater to play there. I love that place. How could Burns not play me in Boston? Okay, Ryan, you got this little voice going on inside. Okay, Ryan, you said you were a team player. Now, let's see how you prove it. So you know what I did, guys, is I sucked it up, and I tell you, it took everything in me to do it. And I patted guys in the pants and, gave them a little whack on the shins and backed off and just stayed out of the way. We lose the game that night, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to stay out of the way. It's the guys' game. Let them figure it out. And I head to the bus right after the game. I've got a little buddy in Boston. His name's Billy. And he's quite mentally sharp, but he's physically quite deformed. But he's an awesome kid. I just love him. We've become friends. Billy, I meet on the way to the bus, and he's screaming. He says, I can't believe, Ryan, that Burns didn't play you. That's why the team lost. I'm thinking, okay, Billy, bring it on. This is good stuff, What a smart kid this Billy is. And so I said, no problem, Billy, not a problem. Away we go. I'm going to go to the bus. I'll see you next week. We're going to be back. No problem. I get in the bus. I'm the only player on the bus. There's only me and the bus driver on the bus. The next person that steps on the bus is Pat Burns. Burns gets on the bus and he screams to the back of the bus, "That's all I need, Wally." Well, my nickname in those days was Wally. Now, you talk about lack of confidence. I'm thinking, what did I do? I patted everybody on the pads. I was the perfect team player. I got out of the way. I let them play the game. I'm thinking, my brain gets a little bit active here. I'm thinking, Burns probably took the same route to the bus as I did. And Billy probably gave him an earful. Way to go, Billy. Now what am I going to do? I don't know if you've ever been in this position, but I'm thinking the man that's most in charge of my professional career hates my guts. Do you know what that does to your tummy? Just turns it and turns it. I finally got up enough confidence and courage to get on the plane and turn to Pat Burns and say, "Burnsy, was there something wrong between you and I?" And he looked at me with the weirdest eyes I've ever seen. He said, "No." And I said, "Well, when you got on the bus, you screamed to the back of the bus, 'That's all I need, Wally.'" He said, "No, it wasn't you." He said, "The refereeing that night was horse bleep. And the chief of referees, Wally Harris, was walking by the bus at that point." Do you know what, gentlemen? I think that's most of life. I think that we, at times, have to muster confidence for things that aren't even us. They're not even our problems. We make them up here. The fourth battle for me, folks, and I want to spend just a little time on this and then I'm done, is the battle for our souls. And I just want to share with you my battle. Let me put it right on the table. I am just an old hockey player from Western Canada. I played in the Western Hockey League. I played in Kamloops. I played in the BC Hockey League in Langley. I loved playing here against Calgary and Regina. Do you guys remember the days when we had to go to Flin Flon? Yeah. You talk about mustering confidence to play in Flin Flon. But you know what's interesting about life is, I don't know if you'd agree with me, I think you would, that it keeps coming at us. I was drafted number 2 in the world. I was very fortunate. And that first season, the second season I played with the Washington Capitals, I was named captain. We were playing some pretty good hockey. We were an average team in my third season. And we flew into New York. We played a game against the Rangers. And we were just getting on our charter plane to fly out. And we were flying through an amazing storm. As a matter of fact, the 737 didn't land, it crashed in that storm. Our little prop plane, I don't know if you've ever been in one that's done this, it felt like every bounce was dropping I don't know. It felt like minutes. It probably was just a second. But we were up and down. We were getting slammed. And you know what, folks, guys? For the first time in my career, the big guys on the team, the tough guys on the team that sat in the back of the plane, they were calling out the name Jesus. And for the first time in their life, it wasn't a swear word in the dressing room. We were really fortunate, and we got off that plane. I got off that plane wondering. I'll bet there's been a time in each of your lives where you've had a crisis, and you come out of the crisis wondering. And I turned to a friend of my team, Jean Pronovo, who is an awesome man, and Jean was a Christian. And I really didn't know what a Christian was, but I turned to Jean and I said, hey, Jean, you seem to have some peace in life, and you love your wife. I can see that. It's genuine. Talk to me about Jesus. John did an interesting thing. You pastors in the crowd are going to love this for an approach. He said, no. Now there's an approach. Do you know what he did? A little bit like tonight, and maybe some of you tonight need this challenge, and maybe I can give it to you. John threw me a New Testament. He said, you go read for yourself, son. Not great? And I started reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Like I'd been to Sunday school before, but I'd really not read the scriptures. They were so good, I went back, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I didn't know there was anything else but Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And for the first time in my life, I was confronted with Jesus. Jesus, not the historical figure, Jesus, the Savior. You see, I didn't know that Jesus had come to die on the cross just for me. I didn't know that he was the reason that we could have friendship with God. Do you know what I did know, guys? I did know that I was a sinner. I had no problem with that one. I knew and I know today all the imperfection in my life. The Bible says that the imperfection in my life is a problem because God is perfect. How does the imperfect Ryan get to a perfect God? It's almost near impossible. And yet, would you agree with me that most of North America believes in the do-good system? Well, if I'm just good enough, I'm going to get to heaven. Guys, let's be really honest with each other tonight. When you're on an airplane, like I was, and you got 2 seconds to make a choice for eternity, good works don't work. You see, I used to think that if I was good enough, I could get to heaven. But you know what? The problem, guys, is how good can I be? If I play a game one night and I get 3 goals and 3 assists and our team wins 9-0 and I don't have any fights or any penalties and the plane goes down, I go to heaven. But if I don't get any goals, no assists, I get in 3 big fights and I've got 50 minutes in penalties and we lose the game and the plane goes down, I go to hell. See, for me, it didn't work because I could never know what was good enough. Oh, man, when I saw Jesus and I saw what he did for me, there was freedom. They say that in the old days, there was, when the Aboriginal people dominated North America, that they also dominated Russia. And there was this one chief with this amazing tribe. And this tribe prospered because this chief was just an amazing leader. Everything was going great until, and by the way, the chief only had 2 rules. Can you imagine Paul Martin only having 2 rules? The first rule was simply love your mom and dad. The second rule was don't steal. A very simple code of honor. Everything's going great. All of a sudden, somebody finds something missing. And the chief says, that can't happen here. I'm putting 10 lashes by the whipmaster if we catch the thief. It happens again and again and again. He moves it to 40 lashes. He knows that only because he's a big man that he might survive 40 lashes. All of a sudden, they catch the thief. It's the chief's mother. Now the tribe is abuzz. What's he going to do? Is his love for his mom going to outrule or overrule his love for the law? They come down to the day of the whipping. They wrap the little mom's arms around a pole. The whip master is coming back for his first whip. It's going to rip her back out on the first one. And the chief says, "Stop, stop." And everybody's so excited. They're just thrilled that his love for his mom has overwritten his love for the law. And yet the big chief doesn't stop there. The big chief takes off his shirt, his garment. He goes over to his mom, and he wraps his arms around his little mom. He whispers in her ear, he says, "Mommy, I love you." He turns to the whipmaster and he says, "Continue." And he takes in his body what she deserved. You know, guys, we're just a bunch of old guys here, some young guys. But I need to tell you that as an old hockey player, that's the message I can never get over. Is that Jesus would wrap his arms around me, that he would be in my place, salvation, so that I can have friendship with God. Wow. You talk about honor. You talk about focus. You talk about confidence. Jesus has already won the battle. Do you know, my son, I played 15 NHL seasons. My last season, I only played, it was actually an 82-game season, and I only played 21 of the 82. That was an interesting year. When you're a player and you want to play, but my legs were starting to give out a little bit. Any of you old hockey players have legs that have given out? Come on, let's be honest here. And I remember, I'll never forget one practice. You see, when you don't play a lot, you guys know what happens. You practice a lot. And at the ripe old age of 34, I was the last guy on the ice getting bag skated every practice. I had one of these games, or one of these days, where my son Ben was up in the stands. He had a teacher day. And so he was up in the stands, and I got bag skated by Stan Schmiel of the Vancouver Canucks. I ended up in Vancouver for the last 2 years. And then I'm really tired. I am beat tired. I'm sweating everywhere. And I call Ben, "Hey, Ben, come on, buddy." And he comes down, and we head in the old Pacific Coliseum. You had to head underneath and towards the dressing room. There was a dad and his two sons that were in there. I don't know, guys, how he got in there. He wasn't supposed to be in there. That's a pretty sacred place during practice, but he got in there. And he said, Ryan, can you come and sign some autographs for the boys?" And I am beat tired, and I'm sweating over everything. I felt so bad for that kid. I dripped on the autograph. I mean, there was no way he understood. I could have signed Guy Lafleur. Actually, a couple times I think I did. And I used to get let me just pause. I used to get these great letters in Montreal when I was a player. And they'd be signed to me, "Dear Ryan, you are an amazing player. You should be in the All-Star team. I think you're going to score 50 goals this year. P.S. Could you please get me Guy Lafleur's autograph?" So I signed the autographs, and the gentleman, his two sons. I'm going, "You know what, sir? I am so thankful to see you here, but I am beat tired. I got to go in the dressing room." And they said, "No problem. Where you go?" So I turned and I started heading into the Vancouver Canucks dressing room. Do you know our son Ben, who actually just got signed by the Bruins? We're really excited for Ben. Our son Ben has grown up in NHL dressing rooms. Like he just ran right into the door, right into the dressing room. And you know what, guys? I'll never forget what the one little boy started to do. The one little boy with his dad and his brother started to scream. He said, Dad, that boy went in the Vancouver Canucks dressing room. Dad, he can't do that. And it hit me. There was only one reason that Ben could go into the Vancouver Canucks dressing room, and that was because he was my son. You know, in the book of John, it says that as many as received him, Jesus, to them, they become the children of God. I need to tell you, guys, that's how the Bible says that we get in to the kingdom. We get in through the relationship. We get in through the family tie. We get in when we ask Jesus to become our Savior. We get in a little bit like marriage. I don't know if you like this example or not, but it's probably the best one in my life. I've been married to Jenny Jingles for 23 years. She is my soulmate. 23 years ago, I stood before God and men and said, I do. Had I not talked to Jen for the last 23 years, how do you think our marriage would be? Not so good. So the commitment begins with Jesus. It begins our time with him, and then we spend time in places like this, understanding his word, listening to him, and him listening to us. We grow in that relationship just like a marriage. So when we think of the battles, we've thought of 4 of them tonight. The battle of our focus. There will be a movie played of our lives. Let's make that the greatest movie ever. Think of the battle of, we talked about confidence. That's a tough one. We have to be confident in Jesus. We think of the battle to honor each other and God. That's our daily battle, and it's our daily pleasure. Finally, the battle for our souls. Every once in a while, when I played in Washington, guys, I became friends with Abe Pollin, who was the owner of our team. He's since become a billionaire. He's a pretty cool guy. But it's not because he's got $1 billion. He's just a great guy. I call Abe once in a while. And Abe, I called him about 3 years ago, just out of the blue. And I said, Abe, what are you doing tonight? And what are you doing today? And he said, Ryan, it's amazing that you would call. He said, tonight, I'm winning the Entrepreneur of the Year award for Washington, D.C. Wow. I was amazed. I said, Abe, that's spectacular. And I said, Abe, you're going to give a speech, right? And he said, yeah, I will. I said, what are you going to talk about? I always love to hear what people talk about. He said, it's funny you would ask. I'm going to tell one story, and then I'm going to sit down. And now I'm salivating. I'm saying, Abe, it's unbelievable. You got to tell me that story. He said, absolutely, I'll tell you that story. He said, when I was 16 years old, I was a pretty good basketball player. And my 2 buddies and I, we worked out all spring and summer. We were going to nail this thing. We were going to make the varsity basketball team. He said, we did everything we had to make that team. That was our objective. And Abe Pollin said to me 2 days before tryouts, he said, I chickened out. Ryan, I chickened out. He said, that whole season, I watched my 2 buddies who made the team and all the other players who made the team that I should have made play a game that I should have been playing. He said, I sat in the stands, I was the fan, watching people do what I should have done. And he said, I swore to myself at 16 years old that I would never do that again. If it was going to be something that I was going to do, I was going to do it.
Thanks for listening to the Impactus podcast. To learn more about living a life of purpose and godly impact, check out impactus.org.